Her father cast her aside for a son. Years later, she returned as a millionaire. Lila was born into a home where love was reserved for boys. From her first breath, her father, Papa Kofi, saw her as a burden. He dreamed of a son to carry his name, inherit his shop, and make him proud. But Lila was a girl, and to him, she was nothing. Her mother, Mama Nia, held her tight, whispering words of love, yet she couldn't shield Lila from Papa Kofi's cold glares or sharp words. As Lila grew, she tried everything to win her father's approval. She helped with chores, studied hard, and even acted like the son he wanted. But nothing worked. Papa Kofi's heart was fixed on a boy. When Mama Nia couldn't give him one, his patience vanished. He brought home a new wife, a younger woman, hoping for a son. Lila watched as her father gave his new wife attention he never showed Mama Nia. Their home, once warm with her mother's quiet strength, grew tense with whispers and jealousy. Mama Nia, once the heart of the house, became a shadow. Still, she held on, hoping things would get better. One night, news arrived. The new wife had given birth to a boy. Papa Kofi was thrilled, celebrating like he'd won a prize. He danced, he laughed, and Lila saw joy on his face for the first time. But that joy wasn't for her, it was never for her. The next morning, before dawn, Papa Kofi made his choice. "You and that girl must go," he told Mama Nia, his voice flat. "I have a son now. I don't need you anymore." Lila's heart raced as she looked at her father, searching for regret. There was none, just a cold, final stare. Mama Nia, tears in her eyes, gathered their few belongings. There was no fight, no begging. She knew Papa Kofi's heart was stone. With only the clothes they wore, mother and daughter left the house. The door closed behind them, shutting out any hope of his love. Lila looked back one last time, wishing he'd call them back. But she saw only a man holding his newborn son, smiling like nothing was wrong. That day, Lila made a silent vow. She would return, not as the unwanted girl her father discarded, but as someone unforgettable. The streets were cruel, cold, and relentless. Lila clung to her mother's hand as they wandered, hungry and tired. Dust stuck to their feet, and their once bright clothes grew ragged. Wealthy people passed by, their eyes ignoring the pair. Mama Nia tried to stay strong, but Lila saw the sadness in her face. She had lost her home, her pride, and the man she once loved. Now they had nothing. Some days, they found leftover food in the market. Other days, they slept with empty stomachs, their bodies weak. One night, under a crumbling shelter, a kind old woman stopped before them. Her name was Granny Sola, and she had watched them struggle for days. "Come with me," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You need a place to rest." Lila and her mother followed, unsure what to expect. Granny Sola's home was tiny, made of mud and straw. To them, it felt like a castle. She gave them warm food, simple but hearty. She laid out a worn mat for them to sleep on. That night, for the first time in weeks, Lila and Mama Nia felt safe. Days turned to weeks, and Lila saw her mother's hidden pain. Mama Nia would sit outside, staring at the sky, lost in thought. She had once been a proud woman in a loving home. Now, she relied on strangers' kindness. It broke Lila's heart. "I'll change our fate," Lila whispered one night, watching her mother sleep. "I'll make sure she never suffers again." From that day, Lila worked harder than ever. She woke early to fetch water for Granny Sola. She cleaned houses in the village and carried heavy baskets at the market. Every small job, she took without complaint. She was just a child, but her determination was fierce. Granny Sola watched her, amazed by her spirit. "You're special, child," she said one evening. "The world may ignore you now, but you'll rise higher than anyone expects." Lila held those words close. She didn't know how or when, but she was certain this wasn't the end. This was just the start. One day, she'd prove she was more than the girl her father rejected. The sun blazed above, and the market hummed with life. Lila, now older and stronger, moved quickly through the crowd. She carried heavy baskets of vegetables for a vendor. Sweat dripped down her face, but she didn't pause. Every coin she earned meant food for her mother. That day, a woman watched her from afar. She stood out, tall, graceful, dressed in fine clothes. Her presence drew eyes. Miss Clara, a wealthy trader, had visited the market for weeks. Each time, she noticed Lila. Unlike other children who played, Lila was always working, always focused. When Lila finished her tasks, Miss Clara approached. "What's your name, child?" she asked. Lila hesitated. Rich people rarely spoke to girls like her. "Lila," she answered quietly. Miss Clara studied her. "You work harder than most adults I know." "Why?" Lila looked at her rough hands. "I want a better life for my mother. I don't want her to suffer." Something stirred in Miss Clara's heart. She saw herself in Lila, a fire. A drive for more. "I can help you," she said. "Come with me. I'll give you an education. A job. A chance to build something big." Lila's heart pounded. This was her chance. The moment she'd prayed for. But then she thought of her mother. "I can't leave her," she said, her voice shaking. Miss Clara smiled softly. "You won't leave her forever. You'll learn and come back stronger." That night, Lila sat with Mama Nia, tears in her eyes. "Mama, I don't want to leave you," she whispered. Mama Nia hugged her tightly. "My child, you have a chance to change our lives. Go, make me proud." The next morning, with a small bag of clothes, Lila left for the city with Miss Clara. As the village disappeared behind her, she made a promise. She'd return, not as the poor girl people pitied, but as a woman of strength. City life was dizzying, tall buildings, endless noise, and people who barely looked at each other. But Lila wasn't here to be scared. She was here to learn. Under Miss Clara's guidance, she studied day and night. She learned math, business, and how to make money. It wasn't easy, there were struggles and doubts. But when she felt like giving up, she pictured her mother's tired face. That kept her going. Years passed, and Lila rose higher than anyone imagined. From a village girl, she became a powerful businesswoman. But one thing stayed the same, her promise. It was time to go back. Lila's life transformed in ways she never dreamed. The girl who once begged for scraps was now wealthy and respected. She built her own company, making smart choices and learning fast. People admired her, some even feared her. She became a millionaire, unthinkable for someone from her village. But for Lila, true success wasn't just money. It was about her mother. The day she bought a grand house, she brought Mama Nia to live with her. "You'll never suffer again," she promised. Holding her mother's hands, tears filled Mama Nia's eyes as she saw the beautiful home. She had gone from sleeping on streets to living in comfort. All because of the daughter the world once called worthless. Life was good, but one day, news came from her village. Papa Kofi's shop had failed. He lost everything, his money, his land, his respect. Debt had crushed him, and the once proud man was now struggling to survive. Lila sat quietly, taking in the news. The father who discarded her was now the one suffering. The irony was heavy. Part of her wanted to forget him, to move on, but a stronger part wanted to see it for herself. Dressed in fine clothes, her car gleaming, she returned to the village. As she stepped out, whispers spread. People stared, shocked. The girl they'd seen begging was now a queen. She walked the familiar paths, each step stirring memories of pain. Then she saw him, Papa Kofi. He sat outside a small, broken shack, his clothes torn, his eyes dull. He was nothing like the proud, cruel man she remembered. For a moment, he didn't know her. Why would he? The girl he rejected was now unrecognizable, powerful, confident. But when their eyes met, he froze. His face paled, his mouth opened, but no words came. Lila stood tall, looking at the man who called her useless. Now she stood above him. The moment she'd waited for was here. But she said nothing, waiting to see what he'd do. Lila stood before the rundown shack, watching the man who was once so strong. Papa Kofi sat on a rickety stool. His shoulders slumped, his face aged. The once proud trader looked broken. She waited, but he didn't know her. The last time he saw her, she was a scared girl begging for love. Now she was a woman of wealth and grace. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice calm but firm. Papa Kofi looked up, his eyes weary. He saw her fine dress, her gold necklace, and the driver behind her. He thought she was someone important. "Please, ma'am," he said weakly, "if you have any kindness, help a poor man. I've lost everything. I have no food, no future." Lila's heart raced, but her face stayed calm. He was begging her, not knowing she was the daughter he rejected. She stepped closer. "Do you remember me?" she asked. her eyes fixed on his. Papa Kofi frowned, trying to place her. Something familiar flickered in his eyes. But he shook his head. Lila took a deep breath. "It's me," she said softly. "The girl you threw out because she wasn't a boy. The daughter you didn't want." Silence. Papa Kofi's body stiffened. His hands shook. His lips parted. But no words came. His mind couldn't accept what he saw. "No, it can't be," he whispered, shaking his head. "It is," Lila said. "I'm the child you discarded. And now I'm the woman standing before you." Tears filled Papa Kofi's eyes. He tried to speak, but his voice failed. He looked at her, really looked, and saw her strength. "My daughter," he said, his voice breaking. He reached out a trembling hand, as if to touch the past. But Lila didn't move. She watched, waiting for him to feel the weight of his actions. In that moment, Papa Kofi understood. The daughter he abandoned was now greater than he'd ever been. That truth hurt more than any debt. Papa Kofi shook as he fell to his knees. His hands grabbed the edge of Lila's fine dress. His face wet with tears. "My daughter," he sobbed. "Forgive me. I was blind. I was foolish. I didn't see your worth." Lila stood still, her heart pounding. This was the moment she'd dreamed of for years. The man who rejected her was now begging at her feet. But it didn't feel like a win. It didn't bring the joy she expected. She looked at him, a man who broke her spirit as a child. Now he was just a broken soul, drowning in regret. Villagers gathered, whispering in shock. They couldn't believe it. The girl cast out like trash had returned as a queen. Papa Kofi cried harder. "I was wrong. I thought a son was everything. But a daughter's worth is greater than gold." His voice broke. His shoulders shook. "Please, my child, give me a chance to make it right." For the first time, Lila smiled, not with joy, but with clarity. She'd spent years proving herself, trying to show she mattered. Now she realized she never needed his approval. She never needed his love to be strong. She stepped back, making him let go of her dress. "I needed a father when I was a child," she said calmly. "But you weren't there. Now I don't need you." Papa Kofi gasped, shaking his head. "No, please," he begged. But Lila had already turned away. She walked to her car, her steps steady. She wasn't leaving with anger or revenge. She was leaving with dignity. As she got into her sleek car, she glanced at the man who made her feel worthless. He was still on his knees, crying, begging, but it was too late. The engine roared, and the car drove off, leaving dust and whispers behind. The villagers watched in silence. They knew Papa Kofi would never recover. He'd lost his wealth, his status, his pride, but his greatest loss was the daughter he discarded. As Lila looked ahead, the sun bright on her path, she knew one thing. She had won, not with revenge or hate, but by proving she was always worthy. Even when no one saw it.